Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Escape Hatch to Wellness. Today, I have the honor and privilege to have on board with me is Haygo Demir from the DGI Group, one of a very special group of companies over the years who've had a tremendous impact on the lives of many, many people, but they didn't know it at the time that they were being impacted. So welcome, Haygo, and thank you for being willing to be talking about Philip Stein today and your illustrious background.
Well, great to see you, Yvette, as always. And over this last couple of months, as the world has changed and we're all been sort of hunkered down in our own environments, and so much has sort of migrated to online. And I've never done so many Zoom calls. I didn't even actually know the name Zoom until all of this started. But as we've seen this great migration of activity to online, whether it's social media, whether it's these webcasts and podcasts, etc., I've been closely watching what you've been doing, and I think it's quite remarkable. And if anyone's been able to pivot their business and their lives and all that, you're certainly one of them. And so congratulations to you. Proud of your work. So
thank you very much. You know, I had a conversation with someone recently who said, you know, how do you go from the cruise industry to wellness? I mean, it's a full 180. And in a sense, if you're from the outside looking in, they've never worked in the industry, in the cruise industry before. And I said, well, I guess from the outside in, it would look rather odd. But yet the cruise lines have focused a lot on health and wellness over the years. But for me personally, I mean, I was raised with it. My mom, I remember the first time she brought home Fit for Life by the Diamonds when I was probably, I don't know, 13, 14 years old. And that began the wellness journey. And with my mom writing for Natural Awakenings magazine over the past 16 years, I have eaten, slept, discussed wellness for 16, 17 years with her. And then everything else that, you know, she used Kripalu for yoga when I was 16. I mean, the list goes on and on. So it really is a finally I get to live what I believe. And that's the most important thing.
well, you know, it's interesting because people do sort of try to compartmentalize things, you know, cruise, wellness, well, those are two different things, or whatever it may be. You could be working in a tower in New York City or working as a lifeguard in Miami Beach. Wellness is something that comes into people's lives. It's obviously very important these days. We're now paying attention to things such as immune systems and all that kind of stuff as this pandemic has raged across the globe and certainly here in the United States. So you can't really separate wellness out from what you do for a living or even for pleasure. It's just part of your life. I'm never going to say to you that I'm going to be a wellness guru. I am certainly not that person, although I believe in science and I believe in medicine. And I also believe in certain things that are not necessarily traditional medicine. The way we know it in the Western world. And you know, Will Stein and I talk about this often. Will Stein, who's the founder, along with his wife, Rena, of Philip Stein, Will and I are actually very close friends, but we're totally different in how we live our lives. Will lives his life, is a vegan. He works out daily. He's definitely an outdoors guy. He meditates. He truly lives what we call the Philip Stein lifestyle. I, on the other hand, I drink, I smoke, I party, I do all of the things that necessarily you wouldn't associate with wellness. However, the technology is just as important to me, even if not more so. It brings, you know, this natural frequency into my life that could be sometimes chaotic in having a good time. And yet it allows me to deal with stress better. It allows me to sleep better. And all of those things are also as important, if not more so, to someone with my lifestyle.
Well, you mentioned sleep and stress because those are the most important pillars of wellness, of overall wellness, because you have nutrition, you have fitness, you have your relationships or the three other pillars, but stress and sleep are so interconnected, but then so are they interconnected with the other three pillars. So no matter whether you're a vegan or you're a partier, some form of wellness will impact your overall health in a positive way. But hey, before we go any further, let's go back to DGI. Let's just talk about the company that you founded, and then we'll go from there, because I really want to hear about how you met Will Stein in the first place.
Well, I mean, DGI stands for Demir Group International. My last name being Demir. I was a one-man show. I don't even know why I came up with the idea of the group, but I was a one-man show for 9 years. And until I made my first hire, just someone we both know very well and are good friends of both of ours, which was Christina Cox, who was a shopping guide for many years and a very successful one. And from there, the company grew. And at one point, we had 22 people working for us. So it truly did become a group. But the idea behind the group was that my goal out of the gate was to become a sales representative, and later on it became sales and marketing. It was it was a group of brands. Mm-hmm. Later also became a group of people, group of brands, etc., group of Caribbean islands, and then the cruise ships. All of it sort of didn't start off as some master plan. It started off as a series of accidents, and life is. It's just, are you willing to take those chances when they're presented to you? That's what life is. And I do tend to have a bit of a cowboy mentality. I'm like, let's go, let's do it. Yes, I'm in. As opposed to really having a strong plan and so forth. I find sometimes that when you're trying to be too much of a perfectionist, you end up just more in paralysis as opposed to just getting it done.
So true, so true.
Yeah. And so, those early years in the late 80s where the world was in a recession and everybody kept telling me, are you crazy starting your own business at this time? Well, there is never a perfect time. Mm-hmm. And so anyways, I started a business and started traveling the Caribbean. And all of a sudden, the word got out that I was starting to do some significant business in this marketplace, and many brands started to come on board. And then, of course, I had to hire people, etc. And and how I met Will and Rena Stein, I had launched a number of very successful brands in the Caribbean, whether it was John Hardy or Maurice Lacroix or Michelle Watches, etc. And so I had known Rena Stein in her previous life, where she had a watch brand called Daniel Mink, which was named after her first son, and she was partners with her then first husband, etc. in that business. And I had met her. I didn't recognize her name because her last name had changed. Mm-hmm. Rena Stein, when her and Will got married, and so ultimately we ended up meeting in Miami Beach, and literally it was a tiny little table in a tiny little office with Will, Rena, and one other employee who, by the way, still works at Philip Stein, and that was in 2003. Okay. And we met, and they start telling me about this technology. To be perfectly frank, right out of the gate, I thought they were a little out there. They were talking to me about frequencies and so forth, put into a watch. As we started to get further into the conversation and doing some research, and you have to understand, back in 2003, the internet was fairly new, but it was there, and we were starting to able to do research and so forth. As I started to do some research into it, I realized the significance of what they had just kind of discovered. and then to be able to put it into a fashion accessory, so that you could wear it. The accessory had to be beautiful. So we start making beautiful watches that at one point, those days, finally got sold to Neiman Marcus and Saks Fifth Avenue and so forth. So it was definitely a fashion forward product, but that had this innate technology in it. It had a disc that almost in those days, we used to describe it as the Intel inside.
Mm-hmm.
It was the brains of the mechanism that made it work,
Mm-hmm.
and hence began the journey back in 2003. And
I have a question for you real quick. When you met them in
sure,
2003, they had the technology, but not the presentation. So they had the natural frequency technology, which is what we know it as today. So they had developed that, but they didn't know how to present it or to the market for the wearability. Is that?
well, they were working on it, and I got involved. A good friend of ours by the name of Jim Damati, he became involved. He had been a partner with John Hardy. Jim, he had also worked in business with brands such as Christian Dior, etc. in the past. And I have to say, Will and Rena were outstanding in how they perceived this with us, visualized it, and really it became this great teamwork.
Okay.
Their ideas were bandied about, and then ultimately they took actual physical formation, where
Mm-hmm.
it came from an idea to a product. And then, of course, we got very fortunate. Now, everybody will tell you it was an overnight success with Oprah and Madonna and all of the original fans of Philip Stein that helped us get a national and then an international recognition.
Mm-hmm.
But it took years of experience, hardship, financial difficulties, etc., for Will and Rena to get to where they got to.
Okay.
And then it took for years of experience, etc., between me and Jim Damati and other people, a lot of other people involved in that process. None of this happens just by yourself
Mm-hmm.
in a or in an apartment, and it sort of comes out of your head fully formed. It's hard work, and you get down and do the work. And so out came this product. The product received brilliant recognition. And one, for being very fashion forward, for being very easy to wear. And we launched originally at that time with our now iconic dual time zone. And then over the years, we've evolved as any brand has to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
Product is essential. So we have now different looks. We have much more different looks coming out soon.
Mm-hmm.
That unfortunately have been a little bit delayed because the Vegas and the Basel shows did not happen this year due to COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
And so we will be doing virtual presentations in October of the new product that's going to be coming out for early 2021.
Nice, nice. Well, I think I got my first Philip Stein watch was in 2008. And you mentioned the dual time zone, which is what inspired that memory, was because
Right.
what I loved about it is when I was working in a ship at that time, we always changed time zones. So my mom lived in one time zone and I worked in a different one. So I had my mom time and I had my me time is how I used it.
Great, yeah.
So I always knew when I was going to call her that it was a reasonable hour and not too much off the mark for her.
Well, I've always referred to that as love time. Dual time zones. There's wherever you are in the world in one time zone and your loved ones in another. And so, yeah.
Well, it helps you stay connected. It's really interesting that with the technology that is as part of the resonance of the watch and the success of the sleep bracelet and the Horizon bracelet and the sports watch, is it works with the resonance of the earth. That's just as I understand it. Is
Absolutely.
circadian rhythm, and that's what our bodies are meant to operate in. And interesting, I've been studying heart math recently, and it's believed by these scientists is that we experience life through our heart, and that our hearts tell our minds, our brains, what to do with the information. So with the Philip Stein technology, I always felt really that much more connected to my mom on a resonance level, because I was always part of my awareness. It was on my wrist 24/7. So that was just for me, my little woo-woo moment there.
Well, those are important moments. I mean, and this is what life is made out of, isn't it? Life is made out of these wonderful memories. And there are certain objects sometimes that actually trigger those memories, which gives that object a lot more innate value than its actual price.
Yep.
You know, and I just, recently I was thinking to myself, what is it that I own that is from the last century? And really, that's 1999.
Mm-hmm.
And we were partying like it was 1999 because the world was going to end at the millennial century, right? And and what do I own from that period?
Mm-hmm.
And that was an interesting, and it may be an interesting question to pose out to the Facebook and Instagram world. What is it that you actually still own? I own objects that resonate memory.
Mm-hmm.
I own a house that was bought in the 90s. And outside of that, maybe a couple of watches.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, I happen to have a lot of watches, but watches and art. And those are literally the only thing that have translated.
Mm-hmm.
Say, art and watches, for me, outside of my memories and my loved ones from the last century.
Mm-hmm.
That's 20 years ago. And how many televisions and cell phones and computers and all of that, and kitchenware, all of that has come and gone.
Yeah. Yep.
And so some of the cruise ships that we knew and loved in the 90s have been sold off as scrap.
Mm-hmm.
Really, what is there outside of those except the memories that you take with you? So
You just mentioned that I just noticed that with Holland America, they just sold off the Veendam, Rhindam, the Statendam was gone, and the Maasdam. They also got rid of the Amsterdam. Now they didn't go to scrap though; they went to other companies. But those were ships that I worked on many years ago.
Yeah. And the one I'm thinking of that just got sold off to scrap was the Sovereign of the Seas, which at the time when it came out, I remember that clearly. That was one of the first mega ships in the world.
Yeah, it was. It was one of those.
Yeah.
Like, wow, when you walked up to it, just wow, look at that thing. And then you look at the Oasis, and you're like, oh, that thing looks like a pea pod next to that thing.
Exactly. It's like a pilot boat, and but again, I mean, it comes down to this for us. Again, we've sort of gotten off the Philip Stein topic, but it started off with that idea of love time.
Yeah, resonance. Mm-hmm.
Things that you love or people who you love are often, these are the memories that come out of those based out of these inanimate objects.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, Philip Stein, outside of having dual time zone, had this rather remarkable technology in it that continues to this day. And back then, when we first launched it, there was no scientific studies.
I'm sure.
It was a feeling that we had.
Well, do you have to know what inspired Will in the first place to look for that technology, or to invent the technology, or capture the technology into one little disc?
Well, it wasn't that he wasn't the one who brought it, because he was a marketing guy like I am, really. somebody who had done, was a scientist,
Mhm.
the idea.
Mhm.
Him and Rena, the tale of this disc,
Okay.
and that this technology had literally been around since the 1950s, when it was originally identified by Dr. Otto Schumann.
Mhm.
Dr. Schumann came to the conclusion that the Earth had a measurable frequency. That frequency was 7.83 hertz. Since then, we know it as the Schumann resonance.
Mhm.
And he also there was another major leap, that the human brain at its optimum level worked at the same frequency.
Mhm.
And so basically, then they found a way of harnessing that energy into a disc so that the disc would receive the frequencies of the Earth
Mhm.
and basically countermand all of the other frequencies that are around us that's created by electricity, computers, Wi-Fi, cell phones. Today, even more so with things like wearable watches, Fitbits, etc., that measure our biometrics.
Mhm.
This is done through Bluetooth.
Yeah.
And Bluetooth uses your body as the conduit for passing that back and forth, the information. Hence, the human body, which never developed or evolved with all of these frequencies, have totally been thrown out of balance.
Mhm.
So what we have discovered now since 2003, and we launched this, the first 6 years was this unbelievable amounts of testimonials,
Mhm.
where people coming back to us and saying, well, this changed my life. This did this did that. And some of it was almost outrageous to us at the time. People would be telling us that their stutter had gone because of wearing the Philip Stein watch, or that they slept better, or that the aches and pains that they were feeling, whether if it was migraine or whether it was arthritic or whatever, was starting to be gone. I mean, we really had no particular explanation for any of that.
Mhm.
It's just that we knew at that point that it had a very positive impact on the lives of many of our wearers.
Mhm.
To do a scientific study or a clinical study, since you're in that field nowadays, you know how much money it can take to do one of those things.
Yeah.
So it took several years for us to be able to get to that point, where the company got to that point where they could sponsor these various different tests.
Mhm.
And some of those tests came back like a stress study that's a 9 out of 10 people wearing Philip Stein for only 1 hour had developed the ability to deal with stress better by 1/3.
Mhm.
All of that has gone now down to this last 2 years. We've done a lot of studies at the University of Jacksonville in Florida. That was a sleep study, and then one for our daytime technology, which was how the body deals with stress better by wearing Philip Stein.
Right.
If then it cut back to all of the testimonials we were seeing. So if migraines were created because your body didn't deal with stress better,
Mhm.
if your aches and pains or whatever was not because, these symptoms were because your body didn't deal with stress or you didn't get a full night's sleep, we know certain things such as great sleep boosts your immune system.
Yes, it does.
And if sleep boosts your immune system, if your body's ability to deal with stress better leads to a better overall well-being,
Mhm.
these were the things that now came out of this particular technology.
Nice.
Period of time as well, I should say, that the natural frequency technology that we were originally buying from science labs have now been purchased by Will and Rena Stein. So we own the entire supply of this particular science and technology. And now let's see what we do with it next.
Well, I just presented a sleep seminar to the NCH Wellness, our hospital here, and there's 5,000 employees, excuse me, with the hospital, and obviously, frontline workers, tremendous amount of stress.
Absolutely.
I had people on my seminar who have had chronic insomnia since childhood. I mean, and what people don't understand, it's kind of like it's become this thing about pride. Oh, I just need 3 hours of sleep and I can operate like a champion. But the fact of the matter is, you might be the exception to the rule, but the majority of people need to have good sleep, and it's good restorative sleep, because the brain needs to dump the toxins that build up in the brain throughout the day. So having sleep, the brain cells shrink and then allow those toxins to get flushed out through the lymph system, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, if you are trying to learn something new, you need sleep before you go to learn, because you dump that so that you can then be receptive to the information that you're learning. And you also need to sleep after you've learned, because you need to have your brain commit what you just learned to long-term memory. So, I mean, there's so many things that go with the power of sleep to begin with. And, from my own personal experience with the sleep bracelet, when that product came out, and at that time I was working on ships, and, you fall into bed and you're exhausted because you've had a tremendously long day, and yet you wake up in the morning and you don't feel rested because you slept the sleep of exhaustion and it wasn't restorative sleep. So when I started pairing the watch during the day and then wearing the sleep bracelet at night, I found myself in a continuous balance of health, and I was less reactive. Now I know that meditation also helps me with that too, but at that time, just this technology on the wrist was the thing that really began to make we kind of go, what's different? Oh, well, I've been wearing Philip Stein. And I noticed the difference, and it was a continuous thing. It wasn't like it was like a here and then bump and then here. It was just this constant rhythm that I was in. And I had such great energy during the day. I thought more clearly, was more focused. I said less reactive and more responsive, and, let's get it done, and let's do it, and let's have some fun, So I'm a huge fan of the technology, and the two of them with that and meditation together, that's just, for me, it's like one hand washes the other. They go together so synergistically.
No, absolutely. And listen, at the end of the day, those people who tell you that all I need is 3 hours or 4 hours of sleep. Look, I can function for long periods with also short sleep cycles. But you do notice that after a certain amount of time, your attentiveness and your ability to absorb new information is reduced dramatically. When you think about teenagers, and really good sleep is wasted on them, but they sleep for long periods, and it's their body is growing.
Yep.
And it's through those growth cycles, etc., that's where the body is adjusting itself, etc. And a lot of that happens from really good sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to be a person that, I've never had trouble falling asleep in my life. I was one of those people who just never wanted to go to bed because I thought I was going to miss something. I was like that as a kid, where people, my parents would be sending me off to bed. I'm like, no, I don't want to go. I want to know what's going on. And, because as we were launching these sleep bracelets, I was one of the guinea pigs. What I didn't understand during that period up till then was, yes, I could fall asleep. I could stay asleep as long as the alarm clock didn't go off. What I didn't realize what this technology did was how much deep sleep it gave me, otherwise known as REM sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And it's during REM sleep as you mentioned, is where the brain dumps the toxins,
Mm-hmm.
it reconfigures itself. It's like a computer that you leave on for too long.
Mm-hmm.
You come back to it, it's slow and sluggish.
Yeah.
But when it reboots your computer, basically the computer starts operating at its optimum level again.
Mm-hmm.
The human brain is no different. It needs to be rebooted. And that REM sleep is what reboots the human brain so that it gets deconfigured, it gets ready to go back at it. So that's why when people wear the watch during the day or this daytime technology and wear the sleep bracelet tonight, they fall asleep faster, they sleep longer,
Mm-hmm.
they report more pleasant dreams or more vivid dreams,
Mm-hmm.
which means that's where you're getting into your REM sleep. And of course, always report waking up more refreshed, energized, and ready to get at the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this technology does. It is just harnessing the actual frequencies of the earth.
Mm.
There is no chemicals, no drugs you're taking. And, that's billions of dollars a year spent alone in the United States. And no wonder we have all of these opioid crises situations going on.
Mm-hmm.
Taking drugs for everything.
Yep.
And this is truly a natural solution to dealing with stress better, sleeping better, that basically improves the quality of your everyday life.
Now, I know that they have done obviously a study with the sleep, and I thought I recently saw that they ran a study on the impact of the technology on the immune system, that it helps
Yeah.
the immune system. Is there any plan to talk about doing a study with Alzheimer's, people who have Alzheimer's?
Great question. I haven't seen anything exactly on that front yet. The company continues to do research in a lot of different areas. Some of it we'll find worth pursuing.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, more it's about the immune system, and will be more studies on that front. I believe happening in a university in Israel,
Mm-hmm.
So we'll continue to look at that. But I have not heard about Alzheimer's, and that's a very interesting one for me because my father certainly succumbed to
Mm-hmm.
Alzheimer's, and so we'll see what happens on that front.
Yeah, I was curious because my grandmother had Alzheimer's, and we used to laugh about it in order so she wouldn't be so stressed about it, because stress is
Yeah.
If you have Alzheimer's, you already have an issue, and then when you add stress to it, it just literally, I want to say, melts the prefrontal cortex. And but so we just kind of joke about some of the things. She would go to bed, and she would wake up, and she would put her makeup on and get dressed, and she'd only been asleep for 2 hours, and here it was only 10 o'clock at night. So her sleep was constantly being disrupted. Where she would get up and remember one time my mom was staying with her, and my mom was working in the kitchen. My grandmother came out, and she said she needed change for her money because she needed to pay someone for the service that she received in the hotel. So my mom was like, "Not sure what you're talking about, Mom, but let's just get you back to bed." But I was just really, because people who have Alzheimer's have such horrible sleep patterns.
Yeah.
And all the people who need the most are people who have Alzheimer's and dementia need that sleep in order to convert, the messages in the brain. So I was that's why I asked about it, because of that.
Yeah, we haven't done any research in that area, but I could tell you, my father had a lot of those same issues, getting up in the middle of the night, to a point where it would totally freak my mother out because he'd get up, get dressed, and go. And it was 1 o'clock in the morning with nowhere to actually go. And now she's got to go and call people to find them and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we had a lot of those issues with him as well. Now, the biggest problem with him is that, you would put the bracelet on him, and mom did put the sleep bracelet on him and, take it off because he didn't understand why it was there.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
Now, interestingly enough, with my mother, she's become a huge believer in the Philip Stein technology.
Mhm.
She's very, very religious. So, a lot of it is about, God will take care of that situation. But it helped her a lot with her Parkinson's
Hmm.
because it had a lot of very positive impact on her Parkinson's. And of course, she also takes medication for it as well.
Mhm.
But, this combined with the medication has been really a tremendous benefit to her.
Good.
So, yeah.
That's great. That's awesome news. So I'm glad that she's at least, if you just have some sense of peace, at least some moments of just calm and less stress. I mean, in today's world, we've got stress every which way coming at us from, the news and life and everything else. So we won't go into that part, but you mentioned about the immunity and the immune system. So what have you seen with the immune system and Philip Stein working together?
Again, this has come out of a preliminary study out of Israel. I did read a report just recently on that. And basically people who do have significant reduced immune systems because of various different medical treatments, such as a chemotherapy or whatever it may be, they now become very susceptible to catching other things.
Yeah.
Whether it's pneumonia, and again, I'm not even going to go into the whole COVID thing right now, but even the flu and pneumonia and whatever bacteria, the immune system has been weakened and can't fight off these other bacteria. We saw in this study, in a preliminary study, a very, very positive results of the immune system being restored for people who are going through various different therapies.
Hmm.
So now this will lead into a much more of a major study. We don't often talk about the results until they are published in a peer publication, usually a scientific journal. The watch study we did on fighting stress, for example, was just last month published, and it was the front cover of Brain and Behavior magazine.
Oh, great.
That released it out to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And saying, here it is. This has been, the tests have been done. There were double-blind placebo studies so that neither the administrator or the subject knew which was placebo.
Right.
And so that double-blind placebo study was done. It was reviewed by peers of people who were not involved in the study, and then shared to the scientific community through a scientific journal. In this case, it happened to be Brain and Behavior. Those are what we tend to talk about in a big major way and saying, here is some facts and studies. This was a preliminary study done in a university in Israel. Now we'll get into that second major study. And then once it's published, after it's been reviewed by peers, that we will be a little bit more assured in making some of the claims.
Wow. So impressive. And I'm really happy to hear the continued deep dives into investigating the different ways that Philip Stein technology can actually impact the human body, because, with nutrition and the compromised immune systems and, all these processed foods that are really not giving you the nutrients that the body needs in order to be healthy, we are being attacked constantly. And, you're talking about Apple watches, for example. My husband wears one. I wear one when I work out. But you know what? I think I'm going to get a Horizon bracelet for him to wear during the day when he's working. So he has that on one wrist and then his Apple Watch on the other. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you for that little reminder there. On a fun note, I remember for a while, Philip Stein was producing these little cards that were the same size as a credit card. And
Yeah, yeah.
I have one of them, but I believe that you have them all over your house. Is
I
that
do. I have them all over my kitchen. And the reason why I have them in my kitchen, let's see if I thought I might have one right here. They're right over next door in my kitchen. I put them down there. They look like a credit card. I put them down and I put lemons and I put my tomatoes and I put my vegetables on those cards. It does two things. It actually makes the fruit or whatever else I put on it last much longer.
real?
Yeah. So I put them under my flower vase, and it tends to keep my flowers fresh longer.
Get out!
Yeah. So, and I also believe that it actually makes tomatoes, oranges, whatever it is that you put on top of it, tastes much truer to its original taste.
Holy cow! I mean, I knew
Or
about
food.
thing, but I didn't know.
Or
That.
it works on wine, right? You've tried it, I'm sure, on wine and on lemons and so forth. What tends to happen to our groceries per se? They're picked and they're put on almost near freezing scenarios, so that when they come to the grocery store, and in the grocery store you'll walk in and there's sometimes on ice, sometimes there's water being put on them. They're in low temperature areas, etc. And so that they're almost, although not frozen, they're made to look beautiful by keeping them close to frozen state. And when you bring them home, you put them in a refrigerator, that never changes from that. So by allowing him to last longer and by, again, introducing natural frequency to tomatoes or whatever else it may be, as opposed to being bombarded by electricity and microwave nearby and computer and Wi-Fi in my kitchen. And I have a smart refrigerator. I don't even know why it says smart on it, but you could somehow connect your phone to your refrigerator. I'm not sure for what reason, but
Martini in advance of you arriving home.
exactly. So so everything in my kitchen is smart except for me, and so I put them on there because they last longer and they taste better.
So do you sell those cards? I mean, I can't imagine like putting my watch in the kitchen and putting an orange or
No, they're just those, you know, the life cards that we gave out as promotional items. We use them to sort of demonstrate the power of the technology. We do it with lemon tests, we call it. And a lemon test is that you cut the same lemon in half and you put one on a regular plate and the other one on a plate that has the life card on it. And the life card has the natural frequency technology that's in every Philips Stein watch. So when, after only 2 minutes, the one that you've put on that card has a full bouquet. You can smell it. Whereas the one that was not on the card has almost virtually no smell to it. Because again, a lemon that's been picked is basically put into a frozen state and it hasn't had that time to breathe. Then when you taste them, the lemon that has been on the card tastes almost sweet, way a lemon is supposed to. As the one that hasn't been on it, it's sour. And we can show this to the people because what the Philips Stein natural frequency technology does is that it reduces acids. And if we can all agree one thing, because there's a billions of dollars worth of anti-acid medicine in the world right now in the United States. Acid is not good for your body.
No, it's not. No.
And so those, and what the technology does is that it balances that out to its natural state. So that, and if it does that to a lemon within 2 minutes, imagine what it does to your body.
I was the subject of one of those lemon tests one time. So as you're talking about it, I can just feel my salivatory glands building up, because I was, okay, here, taste this one. And you just have that, biting into a lemon, and then you taste Stein having sat there. And if you can make a lemon taste sweet, that would be not sugary like an orange would be, but it has such a more mellow flavor, and it's not so sharp. And when you're talking about the acidity in the body, acidity is causing the inflammation in the body. And whether you have arthritis, headaches, whatever, so whatever there's inflammation, there's disease and discomfort that we then treat with ibuprofen or aspirin or something else. Whereas if you can become more alkaline, even just drinking lemon water in the morning, first thing in the morning, 16 ounces of lemon water upon waking, that will begin to alkalinize the system. So if you do that and then wear your Philip Stein, then you'll have a less acidic system and probably better teeth health as well. It should help your dentistry if you've got dental issues.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know about the dentistry, but no, listen, all of this stuff is this. We just have to remember one thing. There's about 14,000 different frequencies on the planet. Mm-hmm. The natural frequency of the earth has what all of us have evolved as humans, have grown with that evolved with that frequency. Most of the new frequencies are within literally last 100 years. Mm-hmm. Much more so in the last 25 years. So the human body does not know how to deal with this bombardment of all of these new frequencies. Mm-hmm. Not only the human body, it's also the food that you eat. Yeah. It's also the water that you drink. Mm-hmm. All of this has now been bombarded by these frequencies that are man-made, that did not exist when the earth formed, when the humans became Homo sapiens, when we actually evolved. Mm-hmm. So truly what this technology does is that it brings the human body and the food that you consume and everything else around you back to its natural state. And it's not an active scenario. When to meditate, you need to take time out and say, I'm going to put this off, or I'm going to move over here. I'm going to turn off the phone. I'm going to turn off the TV and the radio and everything else. And I'm going to spend some time by myself. Mm-hmm. That's an active reason. It's an active act to be not active.
Doing this to it, yes. Yeah.
And when you, to get in better physical condition, more muscle mass, better cardio, you have to get active. Mm-hmm. You have to go to the gym or to the carpet, clear the tables out for a place to work. It's a decision. You're going to get great abs. You got to do a lot of sit-ups. Philip Stein technology is real simple. All you need to do is put it on. Keep it on. And it is very simple. And the truth is, even though we look at it and go, okay, maybe a little bit of money here or there, it is really inexpensive when you think about the benefits that you get.
That's true. Yes.
The sleep bracelet, at its most expensive version, costs you $1 a day.
For a year.
For 1 year. Yeah. Right? It costs $395 and you get the discount on the website or wherever else you get it. It's less than $1 a day to get better sleep.
Mhm.
are, you can buy a watch at $600. That's $2 a day.
Yeah.
To able to deal with stress better. If you were to go out and took a huge survey everywhere in the world and say, if you could deal with stress better, but you got to give me $2, I can assure you most people will be saying, okay, absolutely.
Here's $2. Let me add it. Yeah, bring it on.
Absolutely. To go out and tell everybody that it's for $1 a night,
Mm-hmm.
get a better night's sleep for $1 a night. And then you go back and you go, oh my God, it takes me $3 to buy coffee at Starbucks to wake up in the morning.
Yep.
So really, this is a very democratic technology. It is not intended for only the wealthy. It is intended so that the people around us in our community, our nation, worldwide, gets to deal with stress better and sleep better.
Yep.
Just imagine if everybody you knew slept better and dealt with stress better, how much better will your relationships be to those people?
1,000,000 times, because you will be in a responsive state. You will not be in a reactive state. Yep.
Yeah.
What sleep does for the brain, no pill could ever do. No pill.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I tell you, if those, people who take Ambien, they do, they take a long time to recover from that. And it's highly addictive stuff.
Well,
What the side effects are.
you mentioned Ambien. I read a story about a woman who was taking Ambien, and it was creating this lucid lifestyle that she was having. She was taking it, and then she was getting all these really weird packages in the mail with clothing she would never wear, like literally clothing a prostitute would wear. And she couldn't figure out, she's like, who sent this to me? Well, she went back and found that she would get up in the middle of the night and she would sleepwalk with her Ambien and buy all these really weird things. So she was doing it under the influence of Ambien.
And I can assure you, aside from the fact that it's also addictive and obviously in her case, a very expensive side habit, it costs more than $1 a day.
Yes.
So that's why I think we have to I keep pounding that into people because they look at it and go, oh, I don't want to spend $395 or $200 or whatever. You just have to put it into perspective for people. And once they do, and you go, oh yeah, you're right. So it's simple.
You cannot put a price tag on your health, because if you don't have health, you don't have anything. Nope, you don't.
You're right.
I say that people can go to philipstein.com, take advantage of the discounts, and I'll also put my code in the bottom too. So if you look at an extra 15% off, you can also take advantage of that and get yourself some Philip Stein, whether it's a watch, a sleep bracelet, a sports bracelet, a Horizon bracelet, but get that technology on your wrist and feel better today, right?
Absolutely. It's that simple.
Well, Haygo, I want to thank you so much for your time. Time is the most valuable commodity, and it's the one commodity we can never get back. So the fact that you gave me an hour of your time today, I'm so grateful for. So as you always inspire me, So
well, it's a pleasure, absolute pleasure, Yvette. I mean, you hit on one of my favorite topics, which is about Philip Stein, and of course, and it's always a pleasure seeing you, and I keep watching all the great work you do out there in the world.
Thank you. And if I can always be of service, let me know. I'm happy to be co-creative with you guys. I just love what you do too. So thank you.
Sounds great.
Be well, my friend.
Much love.
Bye-bye.
Much love. Bye-bye.